Right, who's starting us off?
So the daily guide for this morning says 2025 budget. Government allocates 44.17 billion Ghana cedis for key initiatives, scraps taxes, and reintroduces road tolls. We'll come back and get into the details of it. So let me just run through the headlines. Budget statement is Sakawa, that's according to the minority, and Cecilia Dapa testifies against mates, 5 others.
The finance minister is on the front page of the Ghanaian Times holding the horseman leather bag, showing that we all need to support Made in Ghana. And the headline says government to spend 291 billion Ghana cedis to build more resilient, equitable society. Budget not inspirational. This is the minority, but majority says it will stabilize the economy. 5 taxes scrapped to cushion businesses and the citizenry. And they also have the highlights of the budget on the front page.
Now, the front page of the news center says 150.3 billion domestic, $8.7 billion foreign debt servicing cost in 2 years. Economy grew by 5.7% to 1.17 trillion cedis. Debt to GDP now 61.8% under NPP. That's the previous administration. Budget lacks vision and clear policy direction. Minority. 4 new taxes levies imposed, 3 others scrapped while government seeks IMF assistance to review VAT. Government faces 56.9 billion cash flows deficit in 2025. Bilateral creditors withheld 3 billion support from Akufo-Addo's government.
Now to the new finder. Assembly members grab 100 million Ghana cedis in 2025 budget. Government allocates 292.4 million for free sanitary parts in schools. This is really good stuff, and if we look at using local resources to do this, we'll give the economy a boost. E-levy, betting tax, and other levies scrapped, finance minister. And good news for unpaid pharmacists. They've been assured of arrears. They've been assured that their payments will be made in the 2025 budget.
Okay, so we can get into the details. The daily guide for today, 2025 budget, government allocates 44.17 billion cedis for key initiatives. So story says the government is allocated about 44.17 billion in the 2025 budget to support various national initiatives focusing on social protection, infrastructure, education, agriculture, and economic development. We're told that a significant portion of the budget has also been directed towards social protection programs to alleviate economic hardships and improve livelihoods. The National Health Insurance Scheme has been allocated 9.93 billion, while the school feeding program has received 1.788 billion, marking a 33% increase in the cost of feeding per pupil per day. The finance minister also revealed that the livelihood empowerment against poverty program will also see a budget increase, with its allocation rising by 30.8% to 953.5 million, expanding the number of beneficiary households from 350,000 to 400,000. And additionally, he said the capitation grant has been increased from 84 million in 2024 to 145.5 million in 2025, representing a 73.2% rise. Still in the daily guide, before you come in, because I know you want to say something about this, I'll get back to you shortly, but government reintroduces road tolls. So the finance minister has announced that the government will reintroduce road tolls in 2025 as part of efforts to boost revenue for road construction and maintenance.
So the center spread of the time, some of the big numbers to do with the budget. The government has projected to spend 291 billion Ghana cedis in the 2025 fiscal year. Now, the government also estimates to raise a total revenue and grants of 223 billion Ghana cedis, representing 17.2% of GDP. And if you look at some of the other things the government wants to do, the primary expenditure on a commitment basis is projected at 204 billion Ghana cedis. And he says that we'll be looking at some, when it comes to the deficit of about 56.9 billion, we expect to fund those things from foreign and domestic sources. And it means we'll be borrowing from the local markets. And you also be going to the foreign market
to the tune of 50 what?
6.9 billion Ghana cedis.
Well, I mean, that's less than what the Bank of Ghana lost a couple of years ago, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, I'm talking about the budget and some of the things we want to do. So there is the Women's Development Bank, there is LEAP that Winston mentioned, and poor people should be following the big push as well, right?
Yes, the big push of and there's an allocation of 13.9 billion in this year.
Yes. Now, on job creation, let me read this story on page 20 of the Ghanaian Times, because we want to create jobs for the youth. And as an advocate for local production, there's a company here being highlighted by the Ghanaian Times, Tech Cycle. They are producing cleaning products, soap and other things from pineapple waste, discarded pineapple waste. So as we strive to improve sanitation, these are some of the businesses that must be supported.
Where are they located?
So let me give you a bit on that. So they're under the KIC supported agribusiness incubation, co-founded by Najat Hamid Mohammed. They are using pineapple waste to make cleaning products. I've seen their products before, and there are companies like Kodu Technologies, for example, which is founded by a young medical doctor. They use plantain stems to make sanitary parts. So if you're allocating about $200 million Ghana cedis to distribute free sanitary parts, these startups can be enabled to use waste within our own system to create the value. These businesses then end up paying taxes that could really help us to even meet our financing gap.
And you see, you make a very good point about businesses paying taxes. It's the reason when I hear the consistent reminder of 80% of employees within the informal sector. And it is only in this country called Ghana that we have consistently talked about how to formalize things that we've never done. We felt that by a simple directive that Ghana card numbers became our tax identification numbers, that was an end in itself. We had an opportunity during COVID-19 to actually check on many of these, informal businesses when we said they should register and start get something small from government, under the cap bar scheme. The question is, how many of these businesses post the moratorium period have been able to make profits and paid anything to government? How has government followed up on these businesses? It looks like at the time it was one of those, again, slogans. But I think that beyond slogans, a lot can be done. When you deliberately help businesses to, strive to improve, what you can then do, because you can now monitor them. Because if I give you money, okay, I'd monitor. But this is the other point. I am never a fan of government-established schemes giving out monies. And we've had this conversation before. Let me make it Joseph. It's simple. We've had this conversation before. We've talked about how the MasterCards and others have done it very well. You present your business case. If you qualify, you're giving funding, you're monitored, and then you make payment. They give you a 10% interest rate per annum. That's something that government can even do better than that. So if government is giving us the money, government can say, I want to do it at 5%. It's part of the reason I've always had concern with MASLOG. NEIP, Ghana Enterprise Agency, and all those things, even YEA and NYA giving out monies to people. We just don't do it well, and we can do better than we can do. Anyway,
let me give you some more stories on the budget. Budget not inspirational. It has a photo of Osahene Alexander Afenyomakin. He says that the story says the Minority Caucus in Parliament says the budget statement and economic policy of the government is empty and does not inspire confidence in the administration to address the economic challenges of the country. But the majority leader and MP for Boko Central, Mahama Ayariga, says the budget will stabilize the economy and provide the enabling environment for the private sector to thrive and create the needed jobs.
He got a big laugh in Parliament when he said it's a budget for girls. Yeah.
For girls.
Yeah. Well, anyway, listen, when you were talking about the 440 billion to be spent, 44 billion, to be spent on special initiatives. I was doing the maths in my head. Kojo then, brought in the full figures, and we now know the deficit we're expecting is about 56 billion. Okay, so we're going to borrow 56 billion.
We need to bridge the funding gap.
56 billion to bridge
I
the
get
funding
this.
gap.
I mean, is
So we'll
there?
borrow.
Is there? Yeah, we're going to borrow. Is there some other way of getting it besides borrowing? All the grants are drying up, so we're going to borrow, right? I guess my question is: are we weighing the impact of that borrowing as well on the economy? First of all, where are we going for this? Who are we going to do business with? How much are we going to pay on top of it? When are we going to be required to pay it back? We already have some massive debt repayment signposts coming up that we're struggling, to figure out how to meet with with what we have. But in the middle of all this, you start to understand why perhaps they were not so swift to scrap the COVID levy. All right, because that's 13.9 billion cedis on the table. Okay, the problem here is the reason we are hearing for they are not scrapping it is what I don't quite understand. The suggestion is that they want to revamp the whole VAT, and so they would like to do the scrapping of the COVID levy as part of that. Why? I mean, if you need to revamp VAT, sure, revamp VAT. Can't you scrap the COVID levy and then revamp whatever is left? Is there some reason why that can't be done?
Well, could you, I still think that could be done. I think the thing with the COVID levy, we'll get you about 4 billion Ghana cedis in 2025, because we're looking initially at a revenue gap of scrapping these three taxes at some 6.4 billion. If you did the rationalization of VAT, you're looking at some 10 billion. So you can actually understand what the challenge is, because the finance minister talks about, if you look at e-levy, you're looking at some 1.9 billion. If you look at betting tax, and there's a whole controversy about betting tax, we'll talk about that later. If you look at betting tax, you're looking at about 180 million. So that in itself is just about 2 billion Ghana cedis. Then the devil in the detail is the COVID-19 levy. I still believe that this could have been easily scrapped. The finance minister, yes, even though he's been in office for 5 weeks, I know that the finance minister is a serious tax expert. He has an MSc in taxation and policy from Oxford University. He's a chartered tax practitioner here in Ghana. And we have one of Africa's best tax experts in Setekbe.
Mm-hmm.
If they
one of the world's best.
Yeah, if they wanted to do this, we could have actually, they could have actually gone ahead and said, look, you know what, we're doing this. And then, while we wait and review the whole system, to be very honest with you, this whole thing about we want to review the system. Why? What is the difficulty in saying that, okay, so henceforth, we're not going to do 1% COVID-19 levy? What's the difficulty in that? I mean, it's done.
But I think the truth is that they can't afford to lose 13.9 billion.
Kojo, the point is that if you look at the projections for 2025, COVID-19 levy is supposed to give about 4 billion. Of that 4 billion, you've actually created additional some 3 billion into the system, part of which you say is going to go into supporting, say, free SHS and others. Because the tax refund account, by reducing it, you actually pushed in something for you to use as government. So what you do, and there are expenditure cuts. So what you do is to check the leakages, make sure there is value for money. A lot of our problem, look, I've said this before, and I keep repeating this. If Anthony Doku in 2014 wrote to Deputy Chief of Staff Valerie Sawyer and indicated that at our ports alone, the estimated loss of revenue was 36 billion Ghana cedis. This is 10 years ago. So I do not see the need. So I still believe that this is just a nice way of getting some more revenue in the meantime, while government finds a way of dealing with a gap.
Well, I thought they had found a way, because I was made to understand that this tax refund account at GRE, which, I mean, the theory here is there is a law that says that GRE must conserve some 6% of the revenue they collect through taxes, and that's and put it in this account before the rest of the money goes to government. And that 6% is used for refunds to those who may have paid too much tax. When you file your returns and it turns out that you've overpaid, you have to be refunded. Or some people who are not eligible to pay VAT, but they end up paying it because they pay for the product up front and then they have to be refunded. Or, you pay withholding tax and you overpay it, whatever. So there are people who, and companies who have to be refunded on some of the tax they pay. And this 6% is held for that purpose. Now, as I understand it, back in 2015, when this law came to Parliament actually approved not only 6% of VAT, which was the proposal, but 6% of all the revenue that the GRA collects. So they have been collecting far more than they need. They have never in any year refunded more than 40% of the money that they collect there. And they've accrued billions, over 30 billion in this account. My understanding was that the ingenious way they were going to cover for the loss of these three big taxes, the e-levy, the COVID levy, and the betting tax, and the other one that they scrapped, was this. Over 30 billion, which is far more than they collect through these taxes. So you've already covered your bases here. That's the understanding I have had.
When it comes to the COVID tax, VAT and related matters, I think we need to spend a full day to break everything down and really let listeners and Ghanaians understand what it really is, so that we chart a new way forward. So let me bring you back to some of the other things that are happening in the country. The GSS is talking about the economy estimated at 1.17 trillion in 2024. And when you look at some of the growth numbers, the services industry is the largest share of the economy, right? We also have the agri sector recording growth of 2.8%, and that is led by livestock, which recorded the highest growth of 3.5%. And on agri, there is cocoa board matters, there is also cashew farmers speaking, and there's something I want to bring your attention to when we talk about revenues and opportunities. Assembly members are to be given 100 million Ghana cedis in the 2025 budget. Now, if you look at the assembly system, there are so many opportunities to raise revenue. When it comes to something like property rate, we are sitting on a potential 5-6 billion Ghana cedis a year. How do this investment must translate in returns? So if you look at the highlights of the budget, 200 million going here, 400 million going here, we need to look at the program and activities of the various agencies, MMDAs, and interrogate where that money is going to go to and how it's going to transform the economy, so that Auntie Mansa in Pasa will appreciate if she's asked to pay a bit more taxes and the return she's going to get on those things.
We have to talk more about that